Welcome to After the Call, where we answer the questions you have to help you get the most out of your CPI equipment. I'm Brandi Fuller, and joining me, I have with me again our wonderful Dave Melvin. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Brandi, how are you doing?
I am good. Welcome back to the chair, Dave's chair, I should call it. So, did you have a good weekend? Anything fun this weekend?
Yeah, I went to the Shrimp Festival over in Little River, South Carolina.
Okay.
I'm not a seafood person, but they have a lot of local arts and crafts people and local art authors that writes books and whatnot. And so it's pretty neat to see what the local people do.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you didn't eat any shrimp. I was going to ask you, how many shrimp did you eat?
No, none. I'm not a seafood person.
Oh, so what did you eat?
I had a hot dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and everybody that was with me had seafood.
Okay.
They had shrimp tacos and shrimp blog and
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you buy anything? Any art or books or anything?
I got T-shirts.
Well, that's cool. Maybe we'll put one on the screen. You send me a picture of it and I'll throw it up there. Well, that's great. Awesome. Well, we got some questions for you, Dave. I have a couple written questions and a couple videos. So let's dive right into that.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Deidre and I have a question for Dave. Hey Dave, just checking in with you. How is it best that I can maintain my refrigeration system in my Classic BevMax machine? It doesn't have a compressor cleanout panel, so I want to know how best can I clean it out and how well can I keep it maintained? Do you have any tips?
I know you do, Dave. I know you've got tips. You got tips coming out everywhere, out your ears, I think.
Actually, that's a good question, Brandi.
Good.
The older BevMaxes, we did not have the clean out. And so in a lot of cases, it was out of sight, out of mind. So a lot of people would, every spring, every summer, would have refrigeration issues because they neglected to clean their condenser. So with what Deidre asked, it makes for a very good point and a very good preventative maintenance. In the older models, believe it or not, it was actually easier to access from the back of the machine to remove the panel, and they could get to the condenser very easily. But if you couldn't get behind the machine, then what was a quick way to get to it from the front? Now, there's two ways. That panel that she referred to, we could take the screws out, pull the panel back, and do the clean out. That's one way. The other way is kind of a preventative measure, but it's got like an air inlet on the bottom. And I've had people, they would take the old style window air conditioner unit, those type of screens, and they would make a screen of their own and attach it to the bottom of the machine using magnets. And then periodically they would just reach under, pull the magnets off, clean the filter out, put it back in, and back in business. That was the easy way to keep the condenser clean.
Wow.
So there's a couple of ways.
There's a couple little ways to make that a little bit easier. That's great. Yeah. So when you said the old air conditioner models, I'm sorry, I don't know.
The window units.
Okay.
And you probably grew up with AC that was like the heat and air all built in one.
I did. My mom never let us turn on the air conditioning, but we did have it. Yes.
Yeah. When I was little, all we had were fans, window fans.
Oh my.
But the window units were the first, I guess. But you could take the front off, and there was a filter behind a little like spongy filter. You could take that off. You could wash it and all that, and put it back.
Okay.
But that's what I'm talking about.
That's the thing. Okay.
And you could usually buy a roll of it, like at the Lowe's, Home Depot, someplace like that. And that way you could just cut to your own.
To your own size?
Yep.
Oh, that's a good tip. Okay. Awesome. And that's great. Dave, thanks so much. I have a question here from a Nicholas Foy. He says, can we get Dave to explain how to verify the current software version of the Bevmax 4 Refresh and how to properly update the control board? Okay. One other question is how to tell if the drive belts are properly tightened. So let's start with the software first, Dave.
Okay. On a Bevmax Classic generic, and that's what Nick would have. I can do it two ways. I can turn the power off and back on, and on the display, it'll have a figure that begins with an R. But what I'm really looking for is the last two digits. The last two digits is the current software version that is on that machine. The next way is if I walk up to a machine with it closed and in standby, ready to vend, if I push the letter B as in boy and star, it will give me the software version that's on the controller at that time.
And then how do they know the one that's on their machine if that's the most updated version or not?
I know that in a lot of cases, as the FSE makes their travels, we always give the people the latest and greatest software, and we always explain to them what the current version is. And we tell them all the time if you run into a machine that has lower software than what I give you, update it
Mhm.
because we make changes, not necessarily that we have a issue, but we make improvements
Right.
because this customer, that customer wants to be able to do this. And so we kind of share the wealth, so to speak.
Okay. And if they needed to, they didn't have that software from their FSC, they could go to the FTP site, right?
We have an FTP site, and I think you'll be able to give them a link.
I will.
But you can get the access to the software and download it directly from our FTP site. And the next question was, how do you update it?
Right.
So once you have the software loaded on the USB, you turn the power off on the machine, insert the USB into the USB port on the control board. You push and hold the mode button. While holding the mode button, you put the switch to the power on. When you do that, you will see just a kind of a quick flash of light from the control board. When you see that, remove your hand from the mode button. And it takes about 10-15 seconds. And D6 through D10 on the control board will have a constant flash. When you see that constant flash, you're assured that the software download was complete and successful. You pull the USB and you're done.
Wow. That's pretty straightforward. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nick also wants to know about the drive belts and how to tell if they've been properly tightened.
Okay. In a BevMax, you have two. You have an X belt, which is the one that you see that goes across the top, down the side, and across the bottom. So that's the X belt. The next one is a Y belt, and that's what takes your cup up and down. The easiest way to determine if your Y belt has the proper tension is just reach over, grab the cup, lift it up, and let go. What should happen is the cup should remain still.
Mm.
If the cup drops back to the bottom, your belt's too loose.
And isn't that, I think we talked about this before. That's something that the route driver could
Yeah,
maybe identify, right? Because
yeah.
they're going to be in there.
Because you're exactly right, Brandy. A lot of times when the route driver is there to fill the machines, especially in the bottom left-hand corner, they will lift that cup out of their way to fill those columns. And that would be a very good technique for the driver. If they lift the cup up and it drops back down, they need to alert the service tech that's in their area that, hey, my belt's too loose.
And remind me, Dave, what happens when the belt is too loose? What kind of indication would the machine give if, let's say, they didn't know ahead of time that maybe it was loose, but how would the machine be acting?
It can be two ways. One is that when the cup goes up to get the drink, if the belt is pretty loose, when it stops, it'll actually drop a little bit. And when the plunger fires, it'll miss the target altogether.
Mm,
But we'll still go on over to the door to try to deliver because we want to make sure we didn't make a mistake.
mhm.
Um, and by dropping that much, by the time it gets over to the door, it'll miss the discharge frame. And so that will be a mess. It just won't even make the vend at all. And it'll go back home, say vend error, and we're done.
It's funny. I've seen a couple of those. I'm part of some of these Facebook groups that have vending operators in them, and I see quite a few videos. I get tagged in quite a few as well because they know I know you, and they want their question answered.
Okay.
But I do see that. I won't say often, but it seems to be there. Maybe there's a common theme going on. I don't know if it's the time of year or what, but I've seen a few of those videos of late where the vending isn't happening. It's going up, it's trying to grab it. The drink's not dispensing. The cup does go to the port and then it just kind of slowly goes back home and
Yep.
then it will try it again.
Yep.
So I know that we talked about that in the past and it has been, there's a couple troubleshooting things there, but the belt
Yeah.
is a
Well,
good one to
the second thing that you just mentioned there about going over and it attempts delivery, then slowly goes back home, that's the second phase of a loose belt. So
Mm,
let's just say that I go up and I'm able to get the drink, but that extra weight causes the cup to drop. Then when it goes over, it doesn't hit the discharge frame correctly. And when it sees that it didn't deliver, then it slowly goes back home. But the great thing is it will make that a second attempt and it goes over. And this time the cup hits on top of the discharge frame. It's able to do the hook swipe and I deliver the drink. But if for whatever reason, I'm unsuccessful, then it would say vend error and pay the customer's money back.
and pay them back,
Yeah,
right? And that's the belt
yeah.
tensioner spring, right? That's what you have to adjust,
The belt tensioner spring could be broke.
right?
Uh, Even if it's not broke, that's there to kind of add insurance,
Yeah,
a little bit more longevity. And I still am going to have to tighten the belt periodically because the belt does stretch.
yeah.
So that's the Y belt.
Okay.
Now, the X belt, we probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we made a modification to the BevMax where we made changes to the belt and the way it's mounted. And we built in a belt tensioner bracket that has a built in gauge. You've got in the top left hand corner of your machine, the X belt tension bracket. You'll see a C shaped bracket. And in the center of it is like a metal post. And what we're looking for is that metal post to be in the center of that C. Not it doesn't have to be directly in the middle, but we don't want it to touch either the bottom or the top because that would tell me that it's either too tight or too loose, depending on which way it is. So we don't want it to touch. And if it's as long as it's not touching, then I'm within parameters.
Okay. That's good.
Okay.
Boy, Dave, you sure know a lot.
Hmm.
Do you dream about vending machines?
Uh, Probably, but I don't ever remember.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe I have too many.
Maybe you have to. I bet you do. So let's stick with Nick here for one more question. He
Okay.
asks, what makes the glass front vendor say sold out when the machine is clearly not sold out?
Good. One, we could go back to about too loose.
Okay.
So I go up there, the plunger cycles. We know that the plunger cycled. It's all the picker out switch, picker home switch. So we know that we did our job. We just know that we didn't get anything into our cup. But we'll take the chance. We'll go on over, try to deliver. There's nothing in the port. We'll say, oh, that selection's sold out. So that's one way. The one that you've heard me preach a lot about is dirty slides, not
No, Dave,
lubricated.
I've never heard that
Uh,
before.
so, so if I don't have good, clean, slick slides, then the product might not dispense or it might be hung up. But if I don't make it to the cup, we don't know that there's something there. We just assume that we did our job and we did it right.
Right.
And so we go on about our business, nothing delivered. So we assume that the selection is sold out. Worst case scenario, we could have a broken gate that prevented uh, the drink from being dispensed.
Okay. Yeah. Clean and slick and sticky switch.
Yep. There you
We should make a poem about that or something.
go. Yeah.
That's funny. That's
Yeah.
yeah. You say that a lot. Clean and slick and that sticky switch.
Yep.
So awesome. Well, we have another question here on video, Dave. So if you could look at
Okay.
the monitor.
Hi, my name is Ken Taylor, and I have a question for Dave. Hey, Dave, listen, I absolutely hate cleaning these duckbill valves out, especially in the glass front machines. Um, do you have a tip or trick that I could use to make sure I'm not spending my whole shift working on this thing, getting it back where it's not leaking all over the floor? Thank you.
Okay, a duck billed drain.
Well, that took me a minute. Um, but then he talked about from the condenser. So in the condensate pan on any refrigeration assembly, we have a drain tube that comes from the evaporator, goes over to where the condenser is. And what he's calling the duckbill, it's like a P trap.
Okay.
So what happens is when the water drips down, we kind of keep that water so it blocks the air from being pulled back in. So we don't have the warm air from the condenser being pulled into the evaporator. And he is right, over a period of time, it will clog up. So the easiest way that I found back in the day was there was a spring and it was probably about 12 to 16 inches long but it was used to clean out brewer heads and pour over coffee pots. And it was great to just shove in there and shove it up through there and just push and then pull back out, and it would remove the clog. Um, some of these are very tight fitting spaces. If you have an air tank, a CO2 tank, something that with compressed air that you could take and push in there, and that would push it back up in there, and that would clean it out. It doesn't happen real often, but it happens often enough to be a pain.
A pain. I wonder when you said compressed air, do you know those like aerosol can things that people use to clean their keyboards?
Exactly.
Would that be
Yeah,
something that would be helpful there?
it will.
Okay.
And because I've actually, I don't carry compressed air with
Yeah.
me. So when I know that I've gone to a place like that, I will stop at a office
Max.
place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I'll buy me a can to take with me.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I would think would be small enough you could just keep in your toolkit
Yeah, it
and
is.
when that happens. So, I'm assuming your answer, speaks to it not taking forever. That was part of his question of it not, he
Yeah.
doesn't want it to take the full shift. What would you say doing it the way that you're describing it? How long would that
Um,
take, do you think?
Anymore, it's kind of cumbersome, and especially in our newer machines because it's hard to get to from the back. Um, so it's still cumbersome because you'll have to take in a BevMax, you'd have to take the Z barrier out. If it's a combo, you'd have to take the barrier out to get to it because it'd be very difficult to get to from the back of the machine. Um, so that's a little bit harder in older machines. Or older, like a 432 or even 431, it was easier access, and it was much easier to get to. Today, we've kind of made it harder to get to, but the reason why is we were making the machines more efficient. So
Right.
we're sealing it for less um, openness to bad air and so
Sure.
on. So,
Yeah, I guess with some of those improvements, there's always maybe some unintended
yep,
consequences,
yep,
and you just kind of have to take some of that. But that's a great
yeah,
tip.
yeah.
So, a spring with like a little bristle, I believe you said, that could go
Well,
through.
you can do that, but the spring that I was talking about, I mean, it just looks like a spring, and it was
Okay.
about 12 to 18 inches long. Or you could do exactly what you just said, a very small brush.
Okay.
And you think the brush about a quarter inch in diameter would be ideal.
Okay.
Um, and I can't say that I've seen anything like that in a grocery store or anything like that,
Yeah.
but I know I've seen it a lot with people that have the pour over coffee pots.
Hmm.
They have stuff like that. Even in our older coffee machines, go back to the 673 and older machines, we would actually supply a cleaning brush with every machine. And I've seen people use those.
Yeah.
And so that would work.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. We should point out, Dave, that we do have a YouTube channel
Yep.
for our listeners who may not know. You can visit that YouTube channel by visiting cranepi.com/help center. And we have a whole bunch of videos on there for you to troubleshoot and problem solve some of the most common questions we get here at CPI. I also want to invite our listeners to send us some videos, send us some questions, Dave. I think we should have a Stump Dave episode where it's the hardest, most complicated, and we just try to to get you to see how much you really know because you're doing this all without like any sort of reference. This is all from Dave's brain, which is amazing to me. Remind me again how many years you've been in the vending industry?
I've been with Crane 37 years.
Yep,
I just celebrated my 37th anniversary.
I remember. Yes.
And I've worked for a vending company a little over 10 years on and off prior to that. So basically 48 years altogether in the
That's
business.
right. That's right. I don't know why that's so hard for me. It's like the entirety of my life. You've been in the vending
Yeah.
industry. Dave and I have fun joking back and forth. So yeah, that's awesome. And so please check out our YouTube channel. Ask Dave questions. You can email your questions to afterthecall@cranepi.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Dave, for joining me here on After the Call. And we look forward to answering your questions in the future so that you can get the most out of your CPI equipment. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks.